Welcome to DeFi by Design, where we talk all things blockchain and cryptocurrency while striving to educate, empower, and enrich.
It's your boy Andy, and welcome back to the DeFi Slate YouTube channel. Smash the like button on this video, that really helps us out, and sit back and enjoy the content. Thank you very much.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the DeFi by Design podcast. Here today, I'm stationed in London for Token 49 and London Crypto Week. Rob's down in Florida, and of course, here with Jared, the new head chef at Sushi Swap. We know there's been a lot of drama with Sushi, taking us back all the way to 2020 when we first yield farmed Sushi. So good times back then for sure, and excited to see all of the developments that are happening in that world now. We are in a day today, which will have passed by the time this is live, of CZ and SBF going at it head to head. It's almost like you've got like two dragons going at it on the timeline. I can't believe that Twitter is free, really. Here today to talk about what Jared's up to with Sushi Swap, his takes on DeFi, clear up some of the controversies in the past, and see what we got going forward. So yeah, Rob, good morning to you. Top of the hour. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, doing well. Back in the States, across the pond from you. Doing well. Stoked to have another week in crypto with plenty of drama across the centralized exchange space, but it keeps it fun. So yeah, there's tons to talk about. I'm stoked to hear what Jared is up to in terms of the head chef role, what that kind of entails, and the path for Sushi going forward. Jared, maybe we can start, at the beginning. I think, like, full transparency, like, we met, 6 to 9 months ago or something like that, and you were still part of Eons, and we were talking about kind of what that project was. Maybe you could start there, and we can talk about how that path led you to the head chef role at Sushi today.
Yeah, good to see you guys again too. So yeah, I started out in crypto in 2016, kind of officially. 2017 got involved in helping protocols and some altcoin projects from like the engineering and business admin side. And that kind of just ballooned into the path that led me here. And I, along the way, launched an exchange with one of the altcoin projects called Bitfinian, and we built that and ran that for about 1.5 years, and then pivoted fully into DeFi with that project in April of 2020. And once DeFi really kind of hit hard and DeFi summer was a thing, I pretty much just kind of fell in love with that part of the industry. And I pretty much 2 or 3 months after we launched Bitfinian knew that kind of the future of the industry is really what started the industry, right? Which is it's really DeFi, decentralization of these assets and these networks, people having that autonomy, being in control of their own destiny, all the kind of philosophical drivers that may have gotten muddied along the way and do kind of get muddied in some way every cycle, as speculation and greed is kind of pushing full blast. But yeah, Eons came out of that DeFi summer, April 2020. And we were, I think, one of the first 10 wallets, Bitfinian's wallets, to mine Sushi. And we were doing that to build up liquidity for a pair for the exchange. And so been involved with it since it started, really. And I would say that probably the last year I'd been so focused on Eons and some of the other stuff that I was doing that I didn't really pay much attention to Sushi, like, internally, right? I wasn't part of the Discord or whatever. You see topographically at a high level what goes on pretty much if you're involved in the industry with these kind of big protocols. But yeah, I met you guys first. I think it was either February or March of this. Is it this year? Yeah, it's this year. And we were talking about, potentially working together on the Eons stuff at the time. Eons was one of the kind of first well, we wanted it to be one of the first like asset-backed token DeFi protocols where you could kind of build, pseudo banking infrastructure. And I say pseudo banking in that the infrastructure was DeFi, but it had kind of the use case of what people are familiar with in their like Chase banks and stuff. So it was like trying to bridge that gap without, becoming a bank essentially in the traditional sense. And that kind of got put on hold because actually the meeting we had was, we were discussing a lot of the stuff going on behind the scenes, and the partner we had been working with at the time, who was closing our round, was going through some restructuring. And so that's actually coming to a conclusion, it looks like, for that project to get funded. So yeah, I mean, it just took longer. And in that process of me sitting around and doing consulting, the head chef candidacy stuff popped up. And I was just like, man, this is an opportunity of like my lifetime, I think, because of all the stuff I'd been doing in the space. It just seemed like the perfect intersection of all of that, work and experience that I had accumulated since I got into the space. And I'd say like today is the start of the 5th week of, like my official role. And I don't want to sound corny or anything, but I like every day fall more in love with like what Sushi stands for and what we can do with it and how we can move things forward, because the team's super passionate and talented. And I feel like this is a great fit.
Yeah, and the team has been through a lot for sure, with Joseph, last guy, as well as just all of the other controversies and things that have happened. And yeah, I remember when we met, you mentioned how active you were in DeFi, which kind of surprised me, but also, it makes sense because once you kind of mess around a little bit and you try a few things out, it's tough to just stop and kind of look elsewhere. So a lot of people kind of know Sushi right now as a DEX, and that's kind of what it got its name for, with Sam and liquidity mining, and then kind of the Uniswap clone. Clearly there's other things happening on the back end of Sushi, but I'm curious for you now, since you've taken over the last 4 or 5 weeks, has the vision for Sushi changed, or has it stayed relatively the same? And of course we're curious what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the vision that I had for Sushi during the candidacy process aligned and still aligns well with the team's roadmap that they already had, that they had been, putting together since they were kind of without a head chef for, several months. And so I would say that my inclusion into the Sushi team in this role and the vision that I bring for how I think Sushi can expand its market, distribution throughout DeFi and crypto as a market more generally, and then maybe outside of that in some opportunities, right? Aligns really well with the team's ambitions. And, my goal is to bring value and not derail where they're kind of headed naturally, but to augment it. And if I have ideas for things that, amplify those efforts, that's just like a benefit. And I do, and that is some of the stuff that we're working on right now. I think there's a lot of opportunity for the Sushi brand to go through kind of a revitalization to where people are excited about it again, because it kind of does have some products that could use some attention and some more like product market fit within DeFi. And so I think there's an opportunity to just leverage the brand in a really holistic way and push forward the products that are working, keep on with the cross-chain mission statement and really expand distribution there for the brand, but also leverage that and approach it and an approach through other product launches, but in a way that doesn't create, kind of cognitive overload of the brand and also stress the team by putting too much on their plate. Because I think that's maybe something that Sushi has, had a challenge with in the past, is how does it differentiate itself from that claim of being a Uniswap clone? Okay, let's ship as many products as possible, but almost maybe at the expense of those products having the chance at the most success they could have. So
yeah, or the best fit. And that, that kind of brings me to a good point, which, we've seen weekly DEX volumes just drop off a cliff in general. So this is no attack in Sushi in any manner, but we've also seen the ratio of swaps and volume on Sushi compared to Uniswap continuously reach new lows. And I think that's because, one, liquidity, two, kind of like brand name, but also a bit probably because of the past controversy. Now, you've mentioned, kind of trying to be a leader while also kind of not trying to get in the way, which brings me to an interesting point of like this decentralized kind of DAO governance infrastructure. How do you balance kind of being a leader and trying to push forward certain efforts while also kind of maintaining this veil of decentralization, as well as actually putting things through governance and making sure that the community is heard, that the team, is following their roadmap, things that they want to do. I'm curious, like how you try to tackle, certain initiatives like volume and users and product market fit, being the leader while also maintaining that, decentralization and kind of DAO structure, which may or may not be kind of an impediment. We've seen some DAOs do very well, and we've seen kind of other DAOs struggle to kind of make things happen because I guess decentralization kind of causes things to happen slower or less things to happen because of less agreement. So broadly curious about how you manage, kind of getting things done while also, making sure the community and governance is all taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge of the entire experiment. I don't think it's unique to Sushi. I think the challenges that are unique to Sushi in terms of governance and voting and like stakeholder alignment are kind of the same in anything you do, right? So it's more of, well, I'll step back first and say like how I plan to lead and just kind of like my personality is, I don't think of myself as being like the smartest guy in the room, right? I just am very good at putting the right people together and getting them to have like a singular vision and alignment and getting tasks done. And, executive leadership in a lot of ways, like if you want to think of the head chef as a CEO, which in many ways I'm not, but it's an operations role, right? So you have to bring operational efficiency to these organizations, whether it's a DAO or a typical corporate structure or whatever. And that just means that you have to be a really good people person. I think you also have to bring a vision, and you have to be like good at the minutiae of planning and stuff like that. But it's more about getting people aligned. They already kind of have a vision here. Like I was saying, it's like a lot of what my vision is kind of already complements them. And so the alignment is happening very naturally and organically. And then obviously, if you want to label the head chef as like an executive decision maker, people want you to make that decision, right? Many people look towards that kind of figurehead role as the guy who's going to take the liability for making certain decisions, right? And you kind of steer that way. So I think that that's very standard. My personality is pretty laid back. I don't micromanage people. It's a lot of goal setting and just helping people make sure that they have the resources they need. I think with the governance stuff and the the approach to like community stakeholder alignment is very interesting. I would say with Sushi, it's not quite a veil of decentralization. It actually is pretty decentralized. There's quite a lot of people, even our, the processes that we take internally, everyone's distributed across the entire planet. And so the challenges there with just organizationally are real. But from the community side of things, it's a lot about listening. Like you can't expect to impose your will. Like the best ideas win, right? Now, where it gets a little muddy is, are they the best ideas for you? Are they the best ideas for the community, a portion of the community, the largest bag holders, the smallest bag? It's like, what is the alignment, right? Or what are people rallying behind? And so I think it's really important that the protocol has that mission statement, that vision, so that the people that get involved in your governance process and your protocol come into that expecting a certain kind of governance participation to occur, that the ideas that get presented, aren't going to be super controversial, because mostly they'll be in alignment with that mission statement that your protocol puts forth. I think that makes it not really easy, makes it maybe a little bit easier, but I think that Sushi may have had some fragmentation historically in that way. And it could be just that, at times maybe it suffered a little bit of an identity crisis with leadership, too many products, things like that. And so the messaging to the industry gets a little diluted. And so that's one thing we're working on. We want to get Sushi back into people's minds, but with a certain goal, right? A certain mission statement.
Well, you can't just leave us with that. What is and I know Rob's dying, but yeah. What is the identity here, Rob? Yeah, please.
Yeah. I'm thinking about like the balance, as a member of the Sushi community, and as you come together with the rest of the community to align the community's vision in a common effort towards, a certain mission, what is the balance of centralization in the head chef role? Like, what's the balance of that role with the rest of the community's decentralization? And like, what's the balance there? Like, do you have more of a say in terms of what that mission is and how you get there than maybe the community at large? And then I'm also like thinking generally, what's the balance that you see between centralization in, these centralized exchanges? What's the balance between those modes of exchange and the decentralized modes of exchange that we have right now? They seem kind of secular. Is there a vision you have where they come together, or is there a balance of centralization and decentralization that maybe we're at right now, or maybe we're trending in that direction?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. How I view my role, like as it pertains to the question you asked, like the first question you asked, is like more of a filter, right? So like, yes, I have ideas like anyone else in the community can have, and maybe I have information that the community doesn't have, right? Because I'm tapped into all of the different things going on behind the scenes. Other projects reach out and want to work together. And so there's things going on, excuse me, in my role that maybe enhance that kind of filter-esque role that I have, but also, ideas and proposals that come from the community, we're dealing with those in real time, and the ones that may be better, and there are some really great proposals, they would come through me in the sense of like, I'm not the arbiter of like yes or no. It's more of like, okay, what are the merits of this? Let me help maybe navigate the conversation that the community's having for how that proposal plays into the portions of information that they don't have access to, and try and make all of that as transparent as possible, so that the vision and the mission statement that Sushi kind of stands on, those proposals align with that, and that we're pushing the protocol forward. We're not, fragmenting it further or having, factions of the community, I don't want to say attack, but, you can have anyone in these decentralized communities, right, come in and put any kind of proposal up. So you have to have a filter process. Does this make sense for Sushi? If it does, let's get the community, chatting about it more. Let's create this dialogue. So that's kind of how I view my role. More of like a filter, less of like, these are my ideas. I don't really want to be that guy. Like I said, I have ideas. If they're good ideas, the community can rally behind them. But yeah, and then the second question about how I view centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. Do you mean like where I see the future of the industry in terms of them being competitors, or how do you mean?
Yeah, what's the balance of centralization and decentralization in our community, the crypto community at large? Maybe that's your specific, individual vision, and then maybe that aligns or doesn't align with Sushi's vision. Why or why not?
So I think long term, I would like to see personally decentralized exchanges become the prominent mode of exchange, right? I think that they serve the ethos of crypto, obviously, that was first written about in the Bitcoin white paper, the best, right? Do I think that, like, pragmatically that will happen where centralized exchanges go away completely? Probably not on like a quick timeline, maybe in like 20 years or 30 years or whatever. Maybe it's sooner. But I think that the thing that centralized exchanges do really well, right, is they aggregate liquidity, which makes the trading experience better. You don't have these fragmented liquidity pairs. And then you also have support. You have customer support, which is better usually. I mean, when you compare it to most dexes, I mean, in Sushi, we have a whole support team and stuff that's there. So like people are getting a centralized exchange support experience, but most exchanges, centralized exchanges compared to other dexes that aren't Sushi, I think have a better support experience. And then I would say that the way that you swap on a dex historically has had a higher technical proficiency barrier to entry for people, right? You had to download a wallet. Most people are like, I don't even know what a wallet is. Okay, barrier one. Then before you had the ability to, the UI to click from network to network, you had to go in and enter an RPC, right, into your wallet. I mean, good luck. These were things we were trying, like we saw immediately going back to eons and why we were building the app to get rid of all that stuff so that people could literally access it the way they download their Chase or Bank of America app. It's very familiar. That UX is something that they don't have, that they're not, just giving up on. I mean, essentially that's what's happening. So I think that as DEXs continually improve on the user experience in all of those areas, they will gain more ground. I also think that technologically, we're still improving on what an AMM, what the best model is to give the best types of pricing, the best LP experience, how to address impermanent loss, stuff like that, that centralized exchange operator kind of traditionally absorbs all of that liability and risk. And if they fail, you have another one that goes on or that you can go to as a customer. So I think the next 3 to 5 years for the DEX experience addressing kind of all of those things, I think you'll see at least parity. I would like to see DEXs get to feature parity, and then I would like to see them get to market share parity. And then you have a real interesting industry and marketplace.
Yeah. What's interesting is we've seen, if you go on centralized exchanges now, they will offer you a DEX-like swap feature. Like they'll offer you the UI. So like I would argue that while I agree that the UI for connecting a wallet and doing your network and and gas and such is much more difficult than just clicking order, buy or sell on the centralized exchange, I think the swap kind of UI is extremely simple for people to use. It's very much like choose the coin you want to sell and buy. But yeah, I think to add on to your point, it's definitely still not, it doesn't rival centralized exchanges yet because of that. Now we were talking about the identity of Sushi, and I'm still extremely curious about what that is, because we started with the DEX, we got the Sushi bar and 𝗏𝗏 and the lending, and there's a bunch of other kind of products happening, but like you said, you're focused on kind of securing the vision again and bringing the identity and brand back into people's kind of circle and reality of attention. So I'm curious what you and the team have kind of chosen to focus on as the identity and brand of Sushi. Is it DEX? Is it a multi-product suite, multi-chain? Kind of where's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I wrote about this actually in the proposal I put forth during the candidacy and like this discussion, the election or whatever you want to call it. And the way I view Sushi is a DeFi toolkit. It's not just an AMM. It's not just a lending platform. And I think historically that's been really interesting. I think that the products have been somewhat neglected, and it's not the fault of anyone on the team as much, I think, as it is the market. Attention, the market's attention span, and also kind of the turnover in the leadership and some of the drama that revolved around that. And I also think too that, you know, all these kind of things happen for a reason. And again, the team that's here now is kind of battle tested and tried and true, and they just grind. They grind harder than anyone I've ever worked with in crypto, which is really refreshing. The way I view the mission or the brand identity for Sushi is as a DeFi toolkit. And the mission statement you'll see over the next few weeks and through Q1 is to foster that brand messaging into the market so that people are thinking of us in that way. I need to do this. I'm going to go to Sushi. Ooh, I need to do that. I'm going to go to Sushi. Ooh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to Sushi. Whether it's lending, swapping. I've alluded to it on Twitter, so I guess I'll just say it now. You know, we're looking to do a perps platform. So we're going through that process. So if people are doing futures trading and, you know, they want to be under the Sushi brand, they'll have access to that. You know, we want to do, well, I'll stop there because there's some other things that are still kind of in discovery and discussion.
NFTs.
But, well, obviously the 𝗭𝗪 platform, right? So like the 𝗭𝗪 platform has been, you know, had a soft launch a little over or about a year ago. And the team was like, you know, we want to do this the right way. There's a lot more we can do. Let's go build the best NFT marketplace platform that we can and relaunch this in the right way. And so we're really close. Like internally, we have a beta scheduled for the end of this month. It'll go through all the internal processes of like beta testing and stuff like that. And I think I'll stop there on that because I don't want to give too much. I know like the NFT marketplace is as competitive as the AMM marketplace, and I don't want to leak anything ahead of the team's desire to do so. But yeah, I mean, thinking of it that way, but you know, the problem there, or not the problem, but the challenge there is how do you do that in a way that doesn't stress the team's resources financially and from like a talent standpoint. And so, you know, and I put this forth in my proposal, so it's not like I'm leaking anything. Yeah, so I feel comfortable with saying it, but a Sushi Labs style entity and arm. And so the first portion of that was us establishing the legal entity organizational structure that's going through, or past snapshot, it's going through all of the paperwork filing and all of that stuff. And then within that structure will become a Sushi Labs arm, or we would look to raise money to do more like we want to develop products in a way that gives us the ability to kind of de-risk the main treasury, because there's been a lot of value lost, in my opinion, over the course of the last couple of years from the main Sushi treasury, with not the greatest ROI, and then right into a bear market. So the goal is to kind of segment that risk and then allow products to be funded and launched and have the best chance of success without the liability to the main treasury. So that's how I plan to move those things forward. It's a much more scalable. You can take a lot more risks when you do those kind of venture-backed arms. And I use the word venture-backed very loosely. This isn't going to be like solely VC-funded products. These are going to be products that we may move to alpha and then do like token launches and stuff like that, or maybe we don't. But we're going to do it in a way that isn't directly funded by the Sushi treasury.
Awesome. Yeah, that hits on, tons of new value creation as a result of all the kind of breakout points that you have introduced in your proposal, and that Sushi has at its disposal to start venturing into these new arms. The _PERPS protocol, NFT marketplace was touched on. There's tons of product offerings that are like now reaching their own product market fit, and then the Sushi brand is able to umbrella all of those products and recycle value throughout the entire Sushi community. And I mean, let's be frank, Uniswap doesn't, I'm curious whether you see it as like a healthy competition kind of between the decentralized exchanges, as we're seeing the centralized exchanges start to move maybe from healthy competition into unhealthy competition. But it seems like Sushi is like kind of the quickest growing brand in terms of like the brand recognition and the product suite that is available for a comprehensive DeFi toolkit available in the ecosystem right now.
Yeah, I think, and I kind of touched on this like a little bit, Sushi has a really recognizable brand, right? So, and which is great for like distribution of that into the marketplace. The problem is it's lacked kind of a strong mission statement and and strong execution. It's had periods of that where it's seen a lot of success, but I think it's languished for a little while. And bringing me in, I think, was the team's desire to bring in a candidate that could help them build up that momentum and get that alignment so that they can go out and execute like they have in the past. And so that's what I'm here to help them do. But you're absolutely right. With the Sushi brand, how it exists now, launching these types of products gives us immediate distribution into the market. And it's much easier for Sushi to do a product and speculate on whether it's going to be successful than a startup that has to gain that type of attention and that kind of distribution in the market. They're going to be at a significant disadvantage. And so I think that's actually a way that I view Sushi's competition with Uniswap. I don't think we're in competition with Uniswap, at least not yet, because I don't think of Sushi as only a DEX. I think of Sushi as one, as the DEX, as one product vertical in that DeFi toolkit. And I want people to be able to come into the Sushi product line and not have to leave. So I guess in a way they are competition, but they're not. I'm not going to try and compete with Uniswap Labs on R&D when they have $5 billion at their disposal, that would be foolish. I don't think that's a secret to anyone. I think the way that we do what's best for sushi and give it the greatest chance to have that revitalized success and go forward is this multi-product approach, but in a way that's different from how it's done it in the past, because it's launched 𝗂𝗁 and then it kind of languished, right? It's the same as you roll out any of these other products, whether it's a perps platform or an NFT platform or a wallet or whatever. You have to be mindful of how you do it so that you leverage the brand you have now to have the greatest chance of success, really, right? With the lowest liability. And the way I view that liability is talent and treasury, right? If you can remove those two things, at least from the main sushi treasury, then you have the ability to do a lot more cool things and hit on multiple winners.
Yep. Yeah, it's having that kind of a backstop, especially with the bear market that we've been in. I mean, I'm sure it's been tough for a lot of teams, kind of seeing that they had probably millions in their treasury in their own token, and then realizing that potentially either the market cap has gone down significantly as well as the liquidity, so that it's become like almost an illiquid stack. I think that's kind of what we're seeing now with SAM and FTX. They've got a bunch of Solana-based tokens. And unfortunately, that ecosystem was super predatory on retail. There's a lot of tokens there with a market cap of around like 100 to 200 million, or even like 50 to 100 million, with a fully diluted cap of like 5 billion. So it's a ridiculous amount of tokens that have yet to be unlocked. And so yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen that. So being able to push through these types of unlocks and just overall token liquidity going down through the bear market allows you obviously to push through in the bull. Now, kind of on that statement, and being that you were active as well in DeFi Summer, well, you knew that you wouldn't pick up your ledger if there was a new 200% farm launch, because you just launched, or you just jumped into the one last night that was 1800%. So why am I going to wake up in the morning for a 200%? Nowadays, I'm just trying to get 10%. So what's going on here, Jared? Why do you believe yields are down? I mean, aside from, if there is an answer, aside from just speculation being down and kind of bear market, but on the contrary, also why and how can we get speculation back, yields going back higher? What's going to bring DeFi yields back, to exciting levels, if you will, or will they ever get back there? So I'm just curious about your thoughts about what happened, kind of what's compressed yields, and then where we're going in the future with overall yields in DeFi.
Well, I think it's a combination of a few factors, but you had kind of a black swan liquidity event, right, where we were all stuck in our houses for 2 years. Not here in Florida, I guess, but everywhere else in the world. And people were, they were getting free money in some instances in the US. I say that sparingly because a lot of people suffered whether or not they got federal assistance or state assistance, but they were sitting at home in many cases bored with extra degen tolerance, if you will. And so people were seeing insane gains in every market, really, for the most part. And so I think that drove quite a lot of what we experienced in DeFi for those types of yields, right? I also will say that I think that we've, at the start of the market, you have kind of endless opportunities as far as ideas are concerned, right? And so like at the beginning, liquidity mining was relatively new. I mean, there you have, what was it? What was the one exchange?
Compound went first, I think.
That predated Compound. It was a centralized exchange, Fcoin, I think it was.
Yeah.
I want to say it was Fcoin or something like that. But, they kind of pioneered liquidity mining. And but then DeFi, took it and ran with it. and yeah, people were just going absolutely insane on it. And I think that the desire for attention in a new product ecosystem or new ideas were popping up literally every day. And then there were products that were popping up literally because other products that were new ideas were failing. And so the next product that came up was, a variation on that idea that was fixing that idea. And so like, oh yeah, let's just iterate and iterate. And every time we iterate, let's launch a new token on a new platform. And this is amazing, and liquidity is endless because it just keeps pumping into the market. And you get, and so, yeah, you have this parabolic effect from the liquidity, but you also have the parabolic effect from the ideas, right? Ideas plateau. People are tired, like people, you've heard it, bull market burnout. People just get tired and they're like, man, and then you get enough people that get burnt by catching the bottom part of that distribution of the curve, and they leave. So, I think that's one of the things you pointed out about the Solana ecosystem, that I think that FTX and other people who farmed those types of tokens were really savvy from a business standpoint to use that mechanism to bootstrap their own treasury, right? They were able to take out billions of dollars from the market through that mechanism and use it to build a really strong brand. I think that they're probably okay and solvent, but I have no idea. But I think that Sam is a very, very smart person who's surrounded by some even smarter people than he is, and that they have probably planned for that. At least I would hope that they would. Having seen a few cycles in crypto, this isn't a new phenomenon where projects have huge USD treasuries denominated in their own token, right? They don't put any kind of treasury diversification in place. The market downturns and then a bunch of them die. And that's not good for the ecosystem. But at the same time, it's like, it's just natural. So I think, Sushi itself has kind of we're going through some restructuring to be able to address that issue for ourselves. I would say that the former teams, could have likely planned for this market. It's hard though, because, you have to combat FOMO of the community saying, no, the token's going to 200. Don't liquidate the treasury because then it's more liquid token on the market, and then that'll suppress the price. So you have to be really pragmatic, and you have to be like thinking long term. And unfortunately, crypto is traditionally allowed people to overly satisfy their desire for quick returns, right? They get, it's a super frictionless market where you just buy a token, now you're exposed, right? Traditionally didn't have to go anywhere really. Like you didn't have to go to a broker. You didn't have to go fill out a form down at, what's the one down the street from me? Like a traditional brick and mortar brokerage, right? It was like, man, I'm just going to get this Coinbase account, buy this token, or I'm going to go over here to PancakeSwap or Sushi, or I'm going to buy this token, and I'm in the market now. No deposit minimums, no disclosures, nothing, right? So that fed into that whole FOMO. And I don't think it was healthy. It was exciting, but I don't think it was healthy. And the teams that didn't plan for it, yeah, it's going to be a tough slog ahead.
Yeah. And so how do we get going forward? What's the yields going to be looking like? How do they come back? Are we going to see good yields again? Is it just a matter of speculative activity, you think? Or, I've got this theory that DeFi interest rates on stablecoins actually are inverse to what the interest rates are in the real world, where right now the rates on stables are less than the rates that you can get on a treasury bill for 10-year or something. However, if they pull rates all the way back down or lower, speculative activity across the entire world will increase. Thus, people will borrow more stablecoins to buy more crypto or to do other speculative activity on chain. So the rate of lending of stablecoins will go higher. So that would just boost yields across the entire system. That's my thesis as far as like macro. But like macro or not macro or just DeFi, do you agree with that, or do you have other theses as to how yield is going to be created? Real yield has been a theme that we've seen. What's kind of your thoughts on just the state of generating good yield in DeFi over the coming, let's call it a couple of years or months to years?
I think you asked me this same question the first time we had lunch, like back in March or whatever. And I think this was one of the ones where I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I don't know, because I think that there are so many factors that come into play that what I think about it doesn't really matter. It's more of like, what products do I think people are going to use, whether, rates are high or rates are low. The real thing that matters is like liquidity. And so like, obviously liquidity is leaving the marketplace. I think people are hedging their risk for a potential like catastrophic global recession. Will that happen? I don't know. People who are much smarter in economics don't even agree across that industry. And so I think that like my personal opinion doesn't matter as much there as it pertains to like planning for product development and how we address people's access of utility to the marketplace, because that's, again, kind of plays into the thesis of the DeFi toolkit mission statement for Sushi. Could it happen? Yes. Your thesis could be right. I think personally it's less likely to happen, because if we hit a recession, a global recession, people are going to be like hoarding dollars or physical assets. I'm not sure that the same people that were in their homes and in their bedrooms speculating in DeFi originally are going to be the ones that are bringing like on-chain liquidity to try and hedge or take advantage of yields and those, it's a feedback loop. So they'd have to come on chain to hedge and then the borrow more stables for that yield to go up. So I don't know. Could it happen? Sure. Do I think it's likely to happen? I don't think so. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it seems like going forward, the pace of speculation is a bit slower. We're not kind of seeing like everything all at once, all of that speculation flood into the market, maybe because there is just like general disclosures, kind of people, just kind of understand like DeFi, what it is a little bit more. And it's not as unknown or shiny as it used to be. And people were aping in because it was so new and rare, and people were interested in what it could offer them. And now people understand it. There's still functionality and value that it offers, just not quite that speculative, entertainment driven froth that really drives the masses. And when you're looking at liquidity sustainably, you're looking at like growing a portfolio, not based on the market driven froth that maybe is best suited for like holding Sushi totally in a war chest. Like, what else do you diversify into on behalf of a community? Like taking the Sushi treasury into some other assets. I imagine it's probably not T-bills, but it's also not entirely, Sushi in that treasury. Like, what are some of the appropriate assets? Maybe what's the distribution? Like, what are your plans to drive the Sushi treasury?
Aside from pump Sushi to the moon, because it's working.
I have no bearing over anything going on with the price. This is not financial advice. I am a meme person only. I'm an AI meme bot. I'm not even real. Yeah. So, yeah. How do we diversify? So I think, honestly, we're going through some really in-depth thought exercises and some modeling exercises for how to best do that. We have some ideas, but I don't want to put anything out into the market that's kind of an unrefined idea and have anyone speculate on whether or not that's the best approach. And the next thing I know, I'm getting tagged in something on Twitter that, you know, I promised this, or I said that, and then we go a separate way, or, you know, the idea that I might mention anger somebody or something. So I'm just very aware of saying things before, you know, prematurely. But I think there is a clear path for when you have a treasury that is worth a significant value for you to diversify into very low risk exposure. I think for Sushi, it could make sense that most of that looks like, you know, some very low yield stablecoin loans, stuff like that. I don't think that you have to get too carried away with 30 points of diversification and have all of this fragmentation for when you need your liquidity. But I think that you can definitely make it actionable and not keep it in your native coin and have all of that exposure to the price volatility. I think that's just to be honest, like, I'm sure someone will watch this and be annoyed with the statement, but I just think it's really poor planning. You know, like in the real world, when companies do similar types of non-hedge strategies, they typically get a government bailout or they go under, right? And so like, or they get a bank loan and then they have to pay that off. And if they have no assets, they don't get a bank loan, they go under. So I think like, it's just poor planning. You know, we're just going to plan better. The goal is to bring more value to the treasury through these things I've promoted here to you guys. Some other ideas that I've not finalized yet that you'll likely see like posted about and then proposed on the Sushi forums in the coming weeks. And then once that treasury is to a place where you're looking at a, you know, $50 or $100 million value, then you can take steps to diversify it. And it almost becomes like an endowment fund to the project, where you're not really having to spend the collateral. You're just living off the interest, right, if you will. And so that's where I hope to get Sushi to that place again, where it has the opportunity that it had in the past with the war chest that it had, and then kind of step back from that and let the DAO handle it all. And, you know, the best ideas will win, the best treasury management approach will win, but you kind of need someone to bootstrap that strategy. And so that's what I'm working on. Yeah.
Passive incoming.
See, it didn't even make it to Twitter. I'm already getting memed.
All right, Jared. Well, it was a pleasure having you on and chatting again. Yeah, thanks a bunch. Excited to see Sushi grow as active users, community members, loyalists since day one, really. Yeah, liquidity. So, yeah, cheers, man. Thank you for coming on.
For sure. And don't be strangers, man. We'll have lunch again sometime when you're in Tampa and chat about this stuff again, I'm sure.
Cheers, guys.
All right. Later.